The October morning dawned crisp and bright over the suburban neighborhood of Westchester, New York, the kind of perfect autumn day that belonged in a movie. Sophie Carter stood at her bedroom window, watching her breath fog the glass as she pressed her forehead against the cool pane. 16. She was finally 16. "Happy birthday to us," Madison's voice sang from the doorway, and Sophie turned to see her twin sister, her identical twin, bouncing into the room wearing matching pajamas they'd bought specifically for this morning. Madison's dark blonde hair was pulled into a messy bun, her blue-green eyes sparkling with excitement that Sophie tried to mirror. "Happy birthday, Mads," Sophie said, accepting her sister's enthusiastic hug. They looked so alike that even their parents occasionally mixed them up. Same height, same build, same smile. But lately, Sophie had noticed something different in how their mother looked at Madison, something that resembled pity, or maybe guilt. "Mom said to come down in an hour," Madison said, flopping onto Sophie's bed. "She's been acting so weird about today. Do you think she's planning something big?" Sophie shrugged, trying to ignore the knot of anxiety in her stomach. Their mother, Catherine Carter, had been increasingly tense over the past few weeks, whispering conversations with their father that stopped abruptly when the girls entered rooms. Something was definitely coming, and Sophie wasn't sure she wanted to know what it was. "Whatever it is, we're in it together," Sophie said, the mantra they'd repeated since childhood. An hour later, dressed in coordinating outfits, Sophie in navy blue, Madison in forest green, the twins descended the curved staircase of their colonial-style home. Their father, David Carter, stood in the foyer looking uncomfortable in his weekend khakis and button-down shirt, his usually jovial expression replaced by barely concealed nervousness. "My beautiful birthday girls," Catherine said, emerging from the living room. At 43, she maintained an elegant appearance, perfectly styled auburn hair, designer casual wear, the polished look of a successful real estate agent. But today, her makeup couldn't hide the red-rimmed eyes that suggested she'd been crying. "Mom, are you okay?" Madison asked, immediately concerned. "I'm fine, sweetheart. Today is about you two." Catherine's voice wavered slightly. "Come into the living room. We have your gifts." The living room had been decorated overnight with silver and rose gold balloons, a banner reading Sweet 16 stretched across the mantel. But what caught Sophie's attention was the coffee table, where two very different packages sat. One was a set of car keys attached to a large bow, clearly indicating a vehicle waiting outside. Beside it was a thick envelope embossed with the logo of the Plaza Hotel in Manhattan, probably indicating a party reservation for the elaborate Sweet 16 celebration they'd been planning for months. The other package was a simple white envelope, sealed with wax, with Madison's name written in their mother's handwriting. Sophie's stomach dropped. The inequality was impossible to ignore. "Sophie," Catherine said, her voice trembling as she picked up the car keys, "these are for you. There's a white Audi A4 in the driveway, and your Sweet 16 party is scheduled for the Plaza next month. We've reserved the grand ballroom, and you can invite 150 guests." Sophie stared at the keys in her mother's outstretched hand, unable to process what was happening. This was her dream, exactly what she'd hoped for. But beside her, Madison had gone completely still. "And for me," Madison's voice was barely a whisper. Catherine picked up the white envelope with trembling hands. "For you, Madison, I have something different, something that will explain everything. I need you to read this alone, in your room. Please." "What?" Madison's voice cracked. "Mom, what are you talking about? This is our birthday, our Sweet 16. Why does Sophie get a car and a party and I get a letter?" David moved closer to Catherine, placing a supportive hand on her shoulder. Sophie noticed tears streaming down her mother's face now, unchecked and unashamed. "Because," Catherine said, her voice breaking completely, "because that letter contains the truth I should have told you years ago. The truth about who you really are, Madison. The truth about why you're different." The room spun. Sophie reached for Madison's hand instinctively, but her twin pulled away, staring at their mother with an expression of pure betrayal. "Different how?" Madison demanded. "We're twins, identical twins. We're the same." "No," Catherine whispered. "You're not. And that letter explains everything. Please, Madison, read it, and then we'll talk. All of us." Madison snatched the envelope from her mother's hand, her whole body shaking with rage and confusion. "This is the worst birthday of my life," she said, her voice cold. "I don't know what kind of sick game this is, but "It's not a game," David interrupted, his voice heavy with emotion. "Your mother is trying to do the right thing, even though it's 15 years too late. Read the letter, Maddie. Please." Sophie stood frozen, the car keys forgotten in her mother's hand, watching as Madison turned and ran up the stairs, the white envelope clutched to her chest. The sound of her sister's bedroom door slamming echoed through the house like a gunshot. "Mom," Sophie said, her voice shaking. "What have you done? What's in that letter?" Catherine sank onto the couch, burying her face in her hands. "The truth. A truth that's going to destroy our family, but one that Madison deserves to know." "What truth?" Sophie demanded, anger finally breaking through her shock. "We're identical twins. We've had DNA tests for that science project in 8th grade. What could possibly be in that letter that—" "You're not identical," Catherine interrupted, looking up with devastated eyes. "You're not even biological sisters. And Madison isn't our biological daughter at all." The world tilted on its axis. Sophie's knees buckled, and she grabbed the back of a chair for support. "What?" 16 years ago, there was a mistake at the hospital, David said quietly, sitting beside his wife. "When you girls were born. A terrible, life-altering mistake that we didn't discover until it was too late to fix without destroying everything." Upstairs, Sophie heard Madison's anguished scream, the sound of something breaking, and then terrible, wrenching sobs that made Sophie's heart shatter into pieces. Whatever was in that letter, it had just changed their lives forever. Sophie stood frozen at the bottom of the staircase, her mother's words echoing in her mind. "Madison isn't our biological daughter." The statement made no sense, contradicted everything she'd known her entire life. "I don't understand," Sophie said, her voice barely above a whisper. "We're identical twins. We did that DNA test in 8th grade for Ms. Patterson's genetics project. It showed we were identical." Catherine looked up, her face pale and streaked with tears. "That test was compromised. I switched the samples. I made sure it would show you were identical because I couldn't let you find out the truth. Not then. You were too young." The betrayal hit Sophie like a physical blow. Her mother had falsified their science project, had manipulated evidence to maintain a lie. "How long have you known?" "Since you were 6 months old," David said quietly, his voice heavy with guilt. "We discovered it when Madison needed a blood transfusion after that car accident. Her blood type didn't match either of ours. The doctors ran tests, and that's when we found out." Sophie's mind raced back to the vague memories she had of that time. Madison sick in the hospital, their parents acting strange for months afterward, hushed conversations that stopped when she entered rooms. She'd been too young to understand then, but the pieces were suddenly falling into place with devastating clarity. "Tell me everything," Sophie demanded, moving to sit on the arm of the sofa. "If Madison isn't your biological daughter, then whose daughter is she? And where is your real daughter?" Upstairs, Madison's sobs had quieted, replaced by an ominous silence that made Sophie's chest ache with worry for her sister, her twin, even if biology said otherwise. Catherine took a shuddering breath. 16 years ago, David and I were living in Manhattan. I gave birth to twins at Mount Sinai Hospital on October 15th, 2009. You and your biological twin sister, whose name was supposed to be Madison, but there was another woman who gave birth the same day, around the same time. Her name was Jennifer Hayes. She had a single baby girl. There was confusion in the nursery, David continued, his hands clasped tightly together. A power outage, shift changes, too many babies born at once. Somehow, in the chaos, one of our twins was switched with Jennifer Hayes' daughter. We brought home you, Sophie, and the girl we believed was your twin sister, the girl we named Madison. But she's not my biological twin, Sophie said, the reality finally sinking in. She's Jennifer Hayes' biological daughter. Yes, Catherine whispered. And somewhere out there, Jennifer Hayes is raising our biological daughter, your real twin sister. The floor seemed to tilt beneath Sophie's feet. She had a biological twin sister she'd never met, growing up in a different family, living a completely different life. And Madison, the girl she'd shared a room with, shared secrets with, shared every moment of her life with, wasn't her sister at all, at least not by blood. "Why didn't you say something when you found out?" Sophie demanded, anger finally breaking through her shock. "You've known for 15.5 years. Why didn't you fix it? How could we?" Catherine's voice broke. "By the time we discovered the truth, we'd had Madison for 6 months. She was our daughter in every way that mattered. We loved her just as much as we loved you. And Jennifer Hayes, we looked into her situation. She was a single mother, working 2 jobs, struggling to make ends meet. Our biological daughter was being raised by someone who loved her, who was doing her best. So you just left her there? Sophie felt tears streaming down her own face now. You left your real daughter with a stranger and kept someone else's child? It wasn't that simple, David said, his voice strained. We consulted lawyers, psychologists, ethicists. Everyone told us the same thing. Disrupting both families, taking Madison from the only home she'd ever known and forcing Jennifer to give up the child she'd bonded with. It would be traumatic for everyone involved, especially the children. We made the decision that seemed most humane at the time, Catherine added. We would raise both of you as our daughters, love you equally, and when you were old enough to understand, we would tell you the truth and let you decide what you wanted to do about it. 16 years, Sophie said bitterly. You waited 16 years to tell us. We kept pushing it back, Catherine admitted. Every birthday, every milestone, we'd say next year, when they're older. We were cowards. We were terrified of losing Madison, of disrupting your bond, of destroying our family. But then this year, Jennifer Hayes contacted us. Sophie's head snapped up. She knows? She found out about 3 months ago, David explained. She did one of those ancestry DNA tests, and it showed that her daughter, a girl named Lily, wasn't biologically related to her. The testing company connected her with some of Lily's biological relatives on our side. Jennifer hired a private investigator, and he traced the connection back to us, to the hospital, to the day you were all born. So there are 4 of you caught up in this nightmare, Sophie said, her mind struggling to process the enormity of it all. Me, Madison, this Lily girl, and Jennifer Hayes, 4 people whose entire lives were built on a hospital's mistake. Jennifer wants to meet Madison, Catherine said quietly, and she wants us to meet Lily. She's been incredibly gracious about the whole situation, considering we've known for years and never reached out to her. She suggested we tell you girls on your 16th birthdays, let you process the information, and then arrange a meeting if everyone is comfortable. Is that why Madison only got a letter? Sophie asked, the pieces finally clicking into place. Because you knew this would devastate her, and you couldn't bring yourself to celebrate while dropping this bomb. The car and the party are for both of you, Catherine insisted. But we thought Madison needed to know first, needed time to process in private before we all sat down together. The letter explains everything. The switch, how we found out, what we've done about it, and Jennifer's request to meet. A door opened upstairs, and Madison appeared at the top of the staircase. She looked destroyed, eyes red and swollen, face blotchy from crying, the letter clutched in her shaking hand. When she spoke, her voice was cold and detached, nothing like the warm, animated Madison that Sophie had known all her life. You've lied to me every single day of my life, Madison said, descending the stairs slowly. Every birthday party, every family photo, every time you told me you loved me, it was all based on a lie. I'm not a Carter. I'm not Sophie's twin. I'm just nobody. That's not true, Sophie said, moving toward her sister. Because Madison was still her sister. Biology be damned. You're my twin in every way that matters. We grew up together, Don't, Madison said sharply, holding up a hand. Don't you dare tell me it doesn't matter. It matters, Sophie. My entire identity is a lie. Everything I thought I knew about myself, about where I came from, about who I am. It's all false. You're still our daughter, David said, standing. Biology doesn't change that. We've raised you, loved you, cared for you for 16 years. That's what makes us a family, not DNA. Madison laughed bitterly. Except somewhere out there, I have a real mother who's been looking for me. A biological mother who didn't get to raise her own daughter because your hospital screwed up and you were too cowardly to fix it. Jennifer Hayes isn't waiting to take you away from us, Catherine said desperately. She just wants to meet you, to know you're okay. She's not trying to replace us or disrupt your life. My life is already disrupted, Madison shouted, her composure finally shattering. You disrupted it the moment you decided to lie to me for 16 years. You disrupted it when you chose not to tell me that I have a biological mother out there who might have wanted to know me, who might have, her voice broke, who might have loved me without lies. Sophie felt tears streaming down her face as she watched her twin, her sister, her other half, fall apart. Mads, please, we'll figure this out together. You and me, like always. Madison looked at her with eyes full of pain and betrayal. We're not a we anymore, Sophie. We never really were. You're a Carter. You have parents, a biological family, a place you belong. I'm just the girl who got switched, the mistake that nobody bothered to fix." "That's not true," Sophie protested. But Madison was already turning away, heading for the front door. "Where are you going?" Catherine called, panic rising in her voice. "Anywhere but here," Madison said without looking back. "I need to think. I need to figure out who I actually am, since apparently it's not who I thought I was my entire life." The front door slammed, echoing through the house with a finality that made Sophie's heart sink. Through the window, she watched Madison run down the driveway, disappearing around the corner in the direction of the park they'd played in since childhood. Sophie turned to her parents, seeing the devastation on their faces, understanding for the first time the impossible position they'd been in. But understanding didn't erase the hurt, the betrayal, the sheer magnitude of the deception. "I have a biological twin sister out there," Sophie said quietly. "What's her name? What's she like?" Catherine pulled out her phone with trembling hands, scrolling through photos before handing it to Sophie. "Her name is Lily Hayes. She's 16, obviously. She lives in Brooklyn. Jennifer sent us these pictures when she first contacted us." Sophie stared at the screen, seeing a girl who looked nothing like her. Dark hair where Sophie was blonde, brown eyes where Sophie's were blue-green, a different build, different features. This was her biological twin. They looked like strangers. "We're not identical," Sophie said, confused. "No," David explained. "You're fraternal twins, non-identical, which is why the hospital mix-up wasn't immediately obvious. When we brought home 2 baby girls, both with blonde hair and blue eyes, it never occurred to us that one wasn't ours. It took a medical crisis to reveal the truth." Sophie continued scrolling through the photos. Lily Hayes playing guitar. Lily Hayes at what looked like a school play. Lily Hayes laughing with a woman who must be Jennifer, their faces close together in a way that spoke of genuine affection and bond. "She looks happy," Sophie whispered. "She is," Catherine said. "From what Jennifer tells us, Lily is artistic, musical, kind. She's had a good life, even though it's been financially harder than what we could provide. Jennifer has done an amazing job raising her." "Does Lily know?" Sophie asked. "About the switch? About us?" "Yes," Catherine confirmed. "Jennifer told her around the same time she contacted us. Lily has been processing the information, and according to Jennifer, she's curious about you and Madison. She wants to meet you both when you're ready." Sophie looked toward the front door, thinking about Madison out there somewhere, alone and devastated. "I need to find her. I need to make sure she's okay." "Sophie," David started. "She's my sister," Sophie interrupted firmly. "I don't care what any DNA test says. Madison is my twin, my best friend, my other half, and right now, she's hurting and alone, and I need to be there for her." Without waiting for a response, Sophie grabbed her jacket and ran out the door, leaving her parents and their revelations behind. She knew where Madison would be, the same place they always went when life got overwhelming. The park at the end of their street was quiet on this October morning, the playground empty, leaves scattered across the grass. Sophie found Madison sitting on their favorite swing, the one they'd claimed as theirs since they were 6 years old, staring at nothing with tears streaming silently down her face. Sophie sat on the swing beside her, saying nothing, just being present the way they'd always been there for each other. After several minutes of silence, Madison finally spoke. "I don't know who I am anymore," she whispered. "My whole life, I've been Madison Carter, Sophie's twin, part of this perfect family, and now I find out I'm nobody. I'm just a mistake, a mix-up, a girl who doesn't belong anywhere." "You're Madison," Sophie said firmly. "You're my sister, my best friend, the person who knows me better than anyone else in the world. That doesn't change because of what some hospital did 16 years ago." "But it does change," Madison insisted, finally looking at her. "I have a biological mother out there, Sophie. A woman named Jennifer Hayes who's been raising your real twin sister while I took her place. How am I supposed to deal with that?" "I don't know," Sophie admitted. "But we figure it out together. That's what we do, right? Face everything together?" Madison's laugh was bitter. "Except we're not even real twins. We're not related at all. We're just 2 random girls who got stuck together because of a hospital error. We're sisters because we chose to be," Sophie said, reaching for Madison's hand. "Because we've lived every moment of our lives together. Because I can't imagine my life without you in it. Biology doesn't change that, Mads. It can't." For a long moment, Madison just stared at their joined hands. Then, quietly, "Do you want to meet her? Your real twin sister?" Sophie had been asking herself the same question since seeing Lily's photo. I don't know. Part of me is curious, but another part of me feels like it would be betraying you. Like I'm saying you're not enough. I'm not your biological sister, Madison said flatly. You have every right to want to know your real twin. You are my real twin, Sophie insisted. The one that matters. Lily Hayes might share my DNA, but you share my life. That's more important. They sat in silence, gently swinging back and forth, each lost in thought. Finally, Madison spoke again, her voice small and uncertain. The letter said Jennifer wants to meet me, that she's been looking for me. Do you think... She trailed off, then tried again. Do you think she'll be disappointed when she meets me? Sophie's heart broke at the vulnerability in her sister's voice. How could anyone be disappointed in you? You're amazing, Mads. You're funny and smart and creative. Any mother would be lucky to have you as a daughter. But she's my biological mother, Madison whispered. What if she expects me to feel some instant connection? What if she wants me to call her mom, or move in with her or something? What if she wants to take me away from you? No one is taking you anywhere, Sophie said fiercely. We're sisters. We're a package deal. If Jennifer Hayes wants to be part of your life, she has to accept that you come with me attached. For the first time since reading the letter, Madison smiled. Small and fragile, but real. You really mean that? Always, Sophie promised. You and me, Mads. Forever. No matter what any stupid DNA test says. They stayed at the park for another hour, talking through the revelations, the hurt, the confusion. By the time they walked back home together, they hadn't solved anything, but at least they were facing it united. The house was quiet when they returned. Catherine and David sat in the living room, looking exhausted and anxious. When they saw the girls enter together, hand in hand, visible relief washed over their faces. We need to talk, Madison said, her voice steadier now. All of us. About what happens next. About Jennifer Hayes and Lily. About everything. Catherine nodded, tears gathering in her eyes again. Yes, we do. And Madison, I need you to know, I need you to understand, that you are our daughter. We love you just as much as we love Sophie. The way you came into our lives doesn't change that. But you lied to me, Madison said, though her tone was less angry now, more tired. For 16 years you lied. We did, David acknowledged. And we were wrong. We thought we were protecting you, but all we did was deny you the truth about your own identity. We're sorry, Maddie. More sorry than we can ever express. Madison was silent for a long moment. Then, I want to meet her, Jennifer Hayes, and Lily. I need to know where I came from, who I'm connected to biologically. But that doesn't mean... She glanced at Sophie, then back at their parents. That doesn't mean you stop being my parents. I need to expand my definition of family, I guess. We understand, Catherine said softly, and we'll support you, whatever you decide. If you want to have a relationship with Jennifer, we won't stand in your way. She deserves to know you, and you deserve to know her. Sophie looked at her sister, her twin in all the ways that mattered, and made a decision. I want to meet Lily too. Not because Madison isn't my sister, but because I'm curious. Because she's part of this story, and maybe we all need to know each other to make sense of what happened. That evening, Catherine sent an email to Jennifer Hayes, proposing a meeting. Within an hour, Jennifer responded. She and Lily would be happy to meet whenever the girls were ready. They scheduled it for the following Saturday, 1 week away. 7 days for Madison and Sophie to prepare for a meeting that would change everything they thought they knew about family, identity, and what it meant to be sisters. The week leading up to the meeting felt like the longest of Sophie's life. She watched Madison oscillate between nervous excitement and paralyzing dread, spending hours researching Jennifer Hayes online, staring at photos of Lily, trying to prepare for an encounter that couldn't really be prepared for. Sophie did the same with Lily's social media profiles, studying pictures of a girl who shared her DNA but looked completely different. Lily played guitar, posted poetry, volunteered at an animal shelter. She seemed artistic and thoughtful, nothing like Sophie's type A, achievement-oriented personality. On Friday night, the evening before the scheduled meeting, Madison appeared in Sophie's doorway looking pale and exhausted. I can't do this, Madison said, her voice trembling. What if she hates me? What if I'm nothing like what she expected? What if she takes one look at me and wishes she'd gotten you instead? Sophie pulled her sister into the room, sitting her down on the bed. Jennifer Hayes has been looking for you for months, Mads. She's not going to be disappointed. She's going to be relieved that you're okay, that you've had a good life. But what if I don't feel anything? Madison whispered. What if I meet my biological mother and I just... Nothing? What if there's no connection at all? Then there's no connection, Sophie said gently. That's okay too. You don't owe her an instant bond just because she gave birth to you. This is about both of you getting to know each other, not about manufactured emotions. Madison twisted her hands in her lap. Mom, Catherine, has been crying all week. I catch her looking at me like she thinks I'm going to disappear. Like meeting Jennifer means I'm going to choose her instead. Are you? Sophie asked quietly. No, Madison said immediately. I mean, I don't know. Catherine and David are my parents. They raised me, loved me, even if they lied about where I came from. But Jennifer, she's my biological mother, Sophie. She carried me, gave birth to me, and then lost me because of a mistake that wasn't her fault. Don't I owe her something? You don't owe anyone anything, Sophie said firmly. This isn't about obligation. It's about you deciding what kind of relationship, if any, you want to have with Jennifer and Lily. And whatever you decide, I'm here. Always. Saturday arrived too quickly. They'd agreed to meet at a neutral location, a quiet cafe in Midtown Manhattan, halfway between Westchester and Brooklyn. Catherine and David drove the girls into the city, the car silent except for the radio playing softly in the background. We'll be at a restaurant 2 blocks away, Catherine said as they pulled up to the cafe. If you need us, call. We'll be there in minutes. Madison nodded, too nervous to speak. Sophie squeezed her sister's hand as they exited the car, watching their parents drive away with expressions of barely concealed anxiety. The cafe was warmly lit, with exposed brick walls and mismatched furniture that gave it a cozy, intimate feel. Sophie spotted them immediately, 2 women sitting at a corner table, both staring at the door with obvious nervousness. Jennifer Hayes was in her mid-30s, with dark hair pulled back in a ponytail, and kind eyes that widened when she saw Madison. She stood slowly, her hand reaching out to grip the table for support. Beside her, Lily Hayes, Sophie's biological twin, also stood. She was taller than Sophie expected, with long dark hair and warm brown eyes that Sophie recognized from looking at photos of David's side of the family. Lily wore jeans and a vintage band t-shirt, her fingers adorned with silver rings. For a moment, everyone just stared at each other, the weight of 16 years of separation hanging in the air between them. Then Jennifer's composure cracked. Madison, she whispered, tears streaming down her face. Oh my God, you're so beautiful. Madison stood frozen, her face pale, her breathing shallow. Sophie gently guided her sister forward, providing silent support as they approached the table. Hi, Madison managed, her voice barely audible. I'm Madison. Jennifer laughed through her tears, wiping her eyes with shaking hands. I'm sorry. I promised myself I wouldn't cry. I'm Jennifer, and this is Lily. Well, this is complicated, isn't it? Understatement of the year, Lily said, her voice carrying a hint of Brooklyn accent. She looked at Sophie with undisguised curiosity. So you're my biological twin. Weird. You don't look anything like me. Fraternal twins, Sophie said, grateful for something factual to focus on. Non-identical. We share DNA but not appearance. They sat down, an awkward silence settling over the table. A waitress appeared to take their orders, providing a welcome distraction. Once she left, Jennifer turned to Madison with an expression of such tenderness that Sophie felt her chest tighten. I want you to know, Jennifer began carefully, that I'm not here to disrupt your life or replace your parents. Catherine and David raised you, and from everything I can see, they did a wonderful job. You're clearly a remarkable young woman. They lied to me, Madison said quietly. For 16 years, they knew I wasn't theirs, and they never told me. They were in an impossible situation, Jennifer said gently. Believe me, I've spent months trying to figure out what I would have done in their place. When you find out your child was switched at birth, when do you disrupt everyone's lives to fix it? When do you tell a child that everything they believed about their identity is wrong? They should have told us sooner, Sophie said, speaking up for the first time. We deserve to know the truth, Lily nodded in agreement. Mom told me 3 months ago, right after she got the DNA results. I was furious at first. Everything I thought I knew about my family was suddenly in question. How did you find out? Madison asked, looking at Jennifer. Ancestry DNA, Jennifer explained. I did one of those home testing kits out of curiosity, wanting to learn more about my family tree. When Lily's results came back, they showed no genetic connection to me. At first, I thought it was a mistake, but then the testing company connected Lily to relatives on her biological family's side, your side, and I hired an investigator. It took him about 2 weeks to trace the connection back to Mount Sinai Hospital, to October 15th, 2009, to your family, Lily added. When we saw pictures of you two, especially Madison, Mom just knew. The timing, the hospital, everything fit. Madison was crying now, silent tears streaming down her face. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm sorry you didn't get to raise me. I'm sorry the hospital made that mistake. Jennifer reached across the table, gently taking Madison's hand. You have nothing to apologize for. None of this is your fault. You're the victim here, just like Lily, just like all of us. A hospital made a catastrophic error, and 4 lives were permanently altered because of it. 5 lives, Lily corrected quietly. Don't forget Sophie. She lost her biological twin sister too. All eyes turned to Sophie, who felt suddenly exposed. I didn't lose anything, she said defensively. I had Madison. I have Madison. She's my twin in every way that matters. But you missed out on growing up with your fraternal twin, Lily said, studying Sophie with an intensity that made her uncomfortable. We could have known each other. We could have had that biological twin bond that everyone talks about. I have a twin bond, Sophie insisted, with Madison. Biology doesn't define relationships, doesn't it? Lily challenged, not unkindly. I grew up thinking I was biologically connected to my mom, and that shaped my entire identity. Now I find out I'm not, and everything feels different. And you grew up thinking Madison was your identical twin, but she's not. She's not even your biological sister at all. How does that not change things? Sophie felt Madison tense beside her, saw the hurt flash across her sister's face. It doesn't change things because love isn't about DNA, Sophie said firmly. Madison is my sister. Period. End of discussion. Lily held up her hands in surrender. I'm not trying to start an argument. I'm just processing. This is weird for all of us. How have you been handling it? Madison asked Lily. Finding out Jennifer isn't your biological mother? Lily was quiet for a moment, stirring her coffee thoughtfully. It's been hard. Mom is the most important person in my life. We've been through everything together. Financial struggles, moving apartments, me dealing with anxiety and depression. She's been my rock, my best friend, my whole world. And now you find out you're not biologically hers, Sophie said softly, understanding dawning. Yeah, Lily confirmed. It's like, intellectually, I know it doesn't change how much she loves me or how much I love her, but emotionally, there's this weird sense of not belonging, of being displaced, I guess. That's exactly how I feel, Madison said, her voice thick with emotion. Like I don't belong anywhere. I'm not a Carter biologically, but I'm not a Hayes either. I'm just stuck in between. Jennifer squeezed Madison's hand. You belong to yourself, Madison. Your identity isn't defined by which family raised you, or which family you came from biologically. You're your own person, and you get to decide what family means to you. They talked for 3 hours, sharing stories, asking questions, navigating the complicated emotions that came with their unprecedented situation. Sophie learned that Lily wanted to be a music therapist, that Jennifer worked as a nurse at a Brooklyn hospital, that they lived in a small 2-bedroom apartment in Park Slope. Madison told them about her love of writing, her dreams of studying journalism, her close relationship with Sophie that had defined her entire life. She showed them pictures on her phone, family vacations, school plays, the house in Westchester. You had a good life, Jennifer said, looking at the photos with a mixture of happiness and sadness. That's what I needed to know, that you were loved, taken care of, happy. I was, Madison admitted. I am. But finding out the truth has changed everything. I don't know how to reconcile the life I've lived with the life I might have had. You don't have to choose, Lily said. You can have both families if you want. You can be a Carter and a Hayes. The situation is weird, but it doesn't have to be either or. Sophie watched as Madison considered this, saw something like hope flicker across her sister's face. What about you and Sophie? Madison asked Lily. You're biological twins. Do you want to have a relationship? Lily looked at Sophie, her expression uncertain. I don't know. Maybe. We're complete strangers, but we share DNA. That has to count for something, right? I'd like to get to know you, Sophie said carefully. Not because I think you're supposed to replace Madison or anything like that, but because you're part of this story, and maybe understanding you helps me understand myself better. As the afternoon wore on, the initial awkwardness began to ease. They discovered small connections, Madison and Jennifer both loved true crime podcasts. Sophie and Lily both had a weird obsession with organization and color coding. They laughed about the absurdity of the situation, cried about the tragedy of it, and slowly began to see each other as real people rather than abstract concepts. When it was time to leave, Jennifer hugged Madison, tentatively at first, then tighter when Madison didn't pull away. "Thank you for meeting me," Jennifer whispered. "Thank you for giving me the chance to know you." "Thank you for finding me," Madison replied, and Sophie saw the beginning of something. Not a replacement for Catherine, but a new connection, a different kind of maternal relationship. Lily and Sophie exchanged an awkward hug, both uncertain about what came next. "Maybe we could hang out sometime?" Lily suggested. "Get coffee, just the two of us? Figure out this whole twin thing?" "I'd like that," Sophie said, surprising herself with how much she meant it. They parted ways with promises to stay in touch, to meet again soon, to navigate this complicated new family structure together. As Sophie and Madison walked to meet their parents at the restaurant, Madison grabbed Sophie's hand. "Thank you," Madison said, "for being here, for supporting me, for not making me feel like I was betraying you by wanting to know Jennifer." "You could never betray me," Sophie said. "We're sisters, Mads. That's never going to change, no matter how many biological parents or twins we discover." At the restaurant, Catherine and David sat in a booth looking anxious and exhausted. When they saw the girls approach, they stood quickly, questions evident on their faces. "How was it?" Catherine asked, her voice trembling. Madison looked at her parents, the people who'd raised her, loved her, lied to her, and took a deep breath. "It was good. Hard, but good. She's nice, and she loves me, even though she doesn't really know me yet." "And Lily?" David asked, looking at Sophie. "She's different from me," Sophie said, "but interesting. We're going to try to get to know each other, see if we can build some kind of relationship." Catherine's eyes filled with tears. "I know we don't deserve to ask this, but are you still our daughters? Both of you?" Madison was quiet for a long moment. Then, "Yes, you're still my parents, but Jennifer is part of my life now too, and we all have to figure out how to make that work." "We will," David promised. "Whatever you need, whatever makes you comfortable, we'll figure it out together." That night, Sophie and Madison lay in Sophie's bed the way they had since they were children, processing the day's events in the darkness. "Do you think we're still twins?" Madison asked quietly. Sophie turned to face her sister. "We'll always be twins. Maybe not in the biological sense, but in every other way that matters. We shared a womb. Well, different wombs. But you know what I mean. We shared a childhood, a life, everything that made us who we are. Biology is just one small piece of that." "I love you, Soph," Madison whispered. "I love you too, Mads. Forever and always. No matter what any stupid DNA test says." Outside, the October night settled over Westchester, and in their room, two sisters who weren't biologically related held each other close. Proof that family was defined not by genetics but by love, shared experience, and the choice to stay together even when the world tried to pull them apart. The weeks following the first meeting became a delicate dance of navigating two families. Madison started having weekly video calls with Jennifer, tentative conversations that slowly evolved from awkward small talk to genuine sharing. Sophie joined Lily for coffee in Manhattan twice, discovering surprising similarities despite their different upbringings. Thanksgiving arrived with unprecedented complications. Traditionally, the Carters spent the holiday at their home in Westchester, with extended family filling the dining room. This year, Catherine nervously asked Madison if she wanted to invite Jennifer and Lily. "I don't want to exclude them," Catherine said, her voice tight with anxiety. "But I also don't know how to share you, Madison. I know that's selfish, but it's the truth." Madison sat at the kitchen table, watching her mother chop vegetables with unnecessary force. Since the revelation, their relationship had been strained, loving but fragile, like glass that had cracked, but not yet shattered. "I want them here," Madison said carefully. "But I also don't want you to feel uncomfortable in your own home. Maybe we could do 2 celebrations? Thanksgiving with you guys, and then maybe lunch with Jennifer and Lily on Friday?" Catherine's shoulders relaxed visibly. "That would work. Thank you for being considerate, sweetheart." "I'm trying to figure this out too, Mom," Madison said. "It's not like there's a handbook for how to navigate having 2 mothers after being switched at birth." Catherine laughed despite herself, setting down the knife to pull Madison into a hug. "I love you so much. I'm terrified every day that you're going to realize Jennifer could have given you a different life, maybe a better life, and that you'll resent us for keeping you." "I could never resent having you as my mom," Madison said, though she knew it wasn't entirely true. There was resentment, buried deep beneath the love, resentment for the lies, the years of deception, the choice to keep her from her biological mother. Thanksgiving Day arrived with its usual chaos of family and food. Madison's grandparents came from Connecticut, her aunt and uncle from New Jersey, cousins filling the house with noise and laughter. But throughout the day, Madison felt like she was performing a role: the happy daughter, the grateful granddaughter, the normal teenage girl. Sophie found her sister in their shared bathroom that evening, staring at her reflection in the mirror. "You okay?" Sophie asked, leaning against the doorframe. "I don't look like anyone," Madison said quietly. "At dinner, I was looking around at all our relatives, and I don't look like any of them. Grandma's nose, Grandpa's eyes, Aunt Lisa's smile, all these genetic markers that everyone else shares. But not me, because they're not actually my family. They are your family," Sophie insisted. "Genetics doesn't define family, Mads. Love does. Shared experiences do." "Everyone keeps saying that," Madison said, her voice cracking. "But it feels like a lie people tell themselves to feel better about complicated situations. Biology matters, Sophie. It matters to me." The next day, Sophie drove Madison into Brooklyn for lunch with Jennifer and Lily. Their apartment was small but warm, decorated with photographs and artwork that spoke of a close-knit, creative household. Jennifer had cooked a traditional Thanksgiving meal despite it being the day after, wanting to give Madison the full experience. "I thought about what you might have missed yesterday," Jennifer explained, setting dishes on the table. "I know the Carters had their celebration, but I wanted you to have one with us too, with your biological family." Madison's eyes filled with unexpected tears. "Thank you. That's really thoughtful." Lily had made a playlist of songs she thought Madison might like, based on their text conversations over the past weeks. As they ate, Jennifer shared stories about Madison's biological grandparents, Jennifer's parents, who died before Madison was born. "Your grandfather was a jazz musician," Jennifer said, showing Madison old photographs. "He played saxophone. And your grandmother was a teacher. They would have loved you so much." Madison studied the photos, seeing traces of herself in these strangers' faces, her grandmother's smile, her grandfather's eyes, genetic markers she'd been searching for her entire life without knowing it. "Do I look like them?" Madison asked, her voice small. "You have your grandfather's hair," Jennifer said softly, "and your grandmother's hands. See? Long fingers, perfect for piano or guitar." Sophie watched the exchange, feeling like an intruder on an intimate moment. This was Madison's biological family, her genetic heritage. Sophie didn't belong here. "I should go," Sophie said, standing abruptly. "Let you guys have time together. You don't have to leave," Lily said quickly. "You're part of this too, in a weird way. We're all connected." "I'm not connected to you," Sophie said, more sharply than she intended. "Madison is. She's your half-sister or whatever, but I'm just the other girl who got caught up in this mess." "Sophie," Madison started, but Sophie was already grabbing her coat, heading for the door. Outside, the cold November air hit her face, and Sophie realized she was crying. She'd been so focused on supporting Madison, on being the strong twin, that she hadn't processed her own feelings about the situation. She'd lost something too. She'd grown up believing Madison was her identical twin, sharing not just their lives, but their very DNA. Now she knew her biological twin was Lily, a stranger who played guitar and wrote poetry, someone Sophie had nothing in common with except genetics. Her phone buzzed. "Lily, can we talk? Just you and me?" Sophie wiped her eyes, considering ignoring the message, but curiosity won out. She texted back, "Where?" 20 minutes later, Sophie and Lily sat on a bench in Prospect Park, watching ducks glide across the partially frozen lake. The silence between them was heavy with unspoken complications. "I know this is weird," Lily finally said. "We're supposed to be twins, but we don't know each other at all. And you already have a twin, Madison." "I'm just this random person who happens to share your DNA." "Pretty much," Sophie agreed, too emotionally exhausted for politeness. "I have twin cousins," Lily continued. "Identical boys who are so close they basically share a brain. Everyone always talks about the twin bond, like it's this mystical connection that transcends normal sibling relationships. And I always wondered what that would be like. The twin bond is real," Sophie said quietly, "with Madison and me. We know what the other is thinking before they say it. We finish each other's sentences. We've never spent more than a few days apart in our entire lives. And now you find out she's not your biological twin, Lily said gently. That has to hurt. It doesn't change anything, Sophie said automatically, then stopped. Except it does, doesn't it? Because now I know my biological twin is someone I don't have that bond with, someone I might never have that bond with. Do you want to try? Lily asked. To build some kind of relationship? I'm not asking to replace Madison, or to suddenly be your new best friend. But maybe we could, I don't know, get to know each other? See if there's anything there beyond shared genetics. Sophie looked at this stranger who shared her DNA, who carried half the same genetic code, who was technically her twin despite looking nothing like her and having grown up in a completely different world. Why would you want that? Sophie asked. From what Madison says, you and Jennifer are really close. You don't need a biological family. Because part of me wonders, Lily admitted, if we'd grown up together, if the hospital hadn't made that mistake, what kind of relationship would we have? Would we be close? Would we have that twin bond everyone talks about? Or would we just be regular sisters who tolerate each other? We'll never know, Sophie said. We can't go back and redo the past 16 years. No, Lily agreed, but we could try to build something new. Not to replace what you have with Madison, but to add to it. You could have 2 sisters instead of 1. Is that really such a terrible thing? Sophie considered this. She'd always wanted siblings beyond Madison, had begged her parents for a little brother or sister when she was young. Now she had one, just not in the way she'd imagined. Okay, Sophie said finally. Let's try. But I need you to understand, Madison will always be my twin. Biology doesn't change that. I get it, Lily said, and Madison will always be my half-sister biologically. But Jennifer is still my mom, even though we're not related by blood. Family is complicated. Maybe we just have to accept that and stop trying to make it fit into neat categories. They sat in silence for a while longer. Then Lily pulled out her phone. Want to hear something I wrote? It's a song about all this. About being switched at birth and finding out your whole identity is different than you thought. Sophie nodded, and Lily played a voice memo of herself singing and playing guitar. The song was haunting, beautiful, and painfully honest. Lyrics about not knowing where you belong, about love that transcends biology, about the impossible choice between 2 families. When it ended, Sophie realized she was crying again. That's beautiful and heartbreaking. It's our story, Lily said simply. All of ours. You, me, Madison, our moms. We're all trying to figure out how to be a family when the definition of family got completely scrambled. Back at the apartment, Madison and Jennifer were washing dishes when Sophie and Lily returned. Madison's eyes were red-rimmed, suggesting difficult conversations had been had. Everything okay? Madison asked, studying Sophie's face. Yeah, Sophie said, and meant it. Lily and I are going to try to get to know each other. Build some kind of sister relationship, I guess. Madison's relief was visible. Good, because I was worried you'd resent her, or resent me for wanting to know Jennifer. I could never resent you, Sophie said, pulling her sister, her twin, biology be damned, into a hug. We're sisters forever. Nothing changes that. But things do change, Madison said softly. We're not identical twins. We're not even biological sisters. How do we define what we are to each other now? We're twins, Sophie said firmly. Not identical, not biological, but twins in every way that matters. We shared a childhood, a room, a life. We know each other better than anyone else in the world. That's what makes us twins, Mads. Not DNA. Jennifer watched this exchange with tears in her eyes. You girls are remarkable. The way you're handling this, the maturity you're showing, it's incredible. We don't have a choice, Madison said. We either figure out how to navigate this new reality, or we let it destroy the family bonds we do have. And I'm not willing to lose Sophie or Catherine and David just because biology is complicated. December brought new complications. Madison had to decide where to spend Christmas, with the Carters, as she always had, or split time between both families. The Carters' annual Christmas Eve party loomed, and Catherine struggled with whether to invite Jennifer and Lily. I want to be generous, Catherine confessed to Sophie one evening while Madison was out. I want to share Madison with her biological family, but I'm terrified, Sophie. Terrified that she'll realize she likes them better, that she fits with them more naturally, that biology trumps everything else. Mom, Madison loves you, Sophie assured her. She's confused and hurt about the lies, but she loves you. You raised her. You're her mom. But so is Jennifer, Catherine said, her voice breaking. And I have no right to be jealous, because Jennifer lost 16 years with her daughter, because of a hospital's mistake, and our decision to keep quiet. But I am jealous, Sophie. I'm so jealous it makes me sick. Sophie didn't know how to comfort her mother, because Catherine was right to be worried. Sophie had seen the way Madison's face lit up when Jennifer shared stories about her biological grandparents, the way she studied old photos looking for genetic connections. Madison was building a relationship with her biological family, and that naturally meant the Carters' exclusive claim on her was dissolving. Christmas Eve arrived with fresh snow blanketing Westchester. The Carter house was decorated as it always was. Lights strung along the roofline, a massive tree in the living room, wreaths on every door. But this year, among the familiar faces of relatives and family friends, Jennifer Hayes and Lily stood in the foyer, looking uncertain and out of place. Madison greeted them warmly, introducing them to everyone as my biological mom and sister. The words hung in the air awkwardly, and Sophie watched as relatives struggled with how to respond. Catherine handled it with remarkable grace, welcoming Jennifer and Lily, making them feel included. But Sophie caught her mother in the kitchen later, gripping the counter with white knuckles, fighting back tears. "I hate this," Catherine whispered, when she realized Sophie was there. "I hate sharing her. I hate that I have to pretend everything is fine when my daughter is bonding with another woman who has a biological claim to her that I'll never have." "You have 16 years of memories," Sophie reminded her. 16 years of being her mom. Jennifer can't take that away. "But what about the next 16 years? Catherine asked. "What if Madison chooses her biological family over us?" The question hung unanswered because neither of them knew. This was uncharted territory, a family fractured by a hospital's error, trying to rebuild into something new without a blueprint. Later that night, after the party had wound down and guests had departed, the 6 of them sat in the living room. Catherine and David, Jennifer, Sophie, Madison, and Lily. The Christmas tree lights cast a warm glow, but the atmosphere was tense. "We need to talk about the future," Jennifer said quietly, "about how we navigate this situation long-term. Madison is living with you, Catherine and David, and that's appropriate. You've raised her. You're her parents. But I'd like to be part of her life too. And I think Lily and Sophie should have the chance to build a relationship." "What are you proposing?" David asked cautiously. "Shared custody feels wrong," Jennifer said. "Madison isn't a child of divorce. But maybe we could establish regular visits? Madison could spend some weekends in Brooklyn with Lily and me, get to know us in our home environment, and Sophie could join if she wants, to spend time with Lily." Catherine's face paled. "You want her on weekends?" "Not every weekend," Jennifer clarified quickly. "Maybe once or twice a month. I'm not trying to take her from you, Catherine. I just want to know my daughter. I missed 16 years. I don't want to miss any more." Madison, who'd been silent until now, spoke up. "I want that too. I want to know Jennifer and Lily, to understand where I came from biologically. But I also don't want to leave Mom and Dad and Sophie. They're my family too." "You don't have to choose," Lily said gently. "You can have both families. It's unconventional, but this whole situation is unconventional." They talked late into the night, establishing boundaries, schedules, expectations. It was messy and emotional and sometimes painful, but by the time Jennifer and Lily left, they had the framework for a co-parenting arrangement that nobody had a name for. After they'd gone, Madison collapsed onto the couch beside Sophie, exhausted. "This is the hardest thing I've ever done. Navigating 2 families?" Sophie guessed. "Trying to love 2 mothers without making either of them feel like I'm choosing the other one over them," Madison clarified. "Catherine keeps looking at me like she's waiting for me to pack my bags and move to Brooklyn. And Jennifer is so careful, so afraid of overstepping, that sometimes I just want her to claim me, to say I'm her daughter without apologizing for it." "What do you want?" Sophie asked. "Forget what everyone else wants. What do you want, Mads?" Madison was quiet for a long time. Then, "I want both. I want Catherine and David, who raised me and loved me and gave me this incredible life. But I also want Jennifer, who gave birth to me, who has my biological grandmother's recipe book and stories about ancestors I never knew I had. I want Lily as my sister, even though I have you. I want all of it, Sophie. I want to be Madison Carter and Madison Hayes simultaneously, but I don't know if that's possible." "Maybe it is," Sophie said slowly. "Maybe you don't have to choose. Maybe you get to be both, and everyone else just has to adjust to that reality." "And what about you?" Madison asked. "How are you handling all this? Having Lily as your biological twin, finding out I'm not?" Sophie considered the question carefully. It's weird, but I'm learning that the bond we have, you and me, it's not about biology. It never was. We're twins because we chose each other, because we grew up together, because we can't imagine life without each other. Lily and I might build a relationship, might even become close, but she'll never be what you are to me. Madison's eyes filled with tears. Promise me something? Anything. Promise me that no matter how complicated this gets, no matter how many families we end up navigating, you and I stay us. We stay twins. We stay sisters. Always, Sophie promised, gripping Madison's hand tight. Biology is just genetics, Mads. Family is choice, and I choose you. Every single time. Upstairs, Catherine stood at her bedroom window, watching snow fall onto their quiet street. David came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. We're losing her, Catherine whispered. We're sharing her, David corrected gently. It's not the same thing. Madison will always be our daughter, but she gets to have Jennifer too. That's not a loss, Catherine. That's Madison gaining something she deserves. Knowledge of her biological family. I'm terrified, Catherine admitted. So am I, David said. But we did the right thing, finally telling her the truth. And now we have to trust that the 16 years we spent raising her, loving her, being her parents, that matters more than biology. In the living room, two sisters who weren't biological twins held each other close, proving that family was defined not by DNA, but by love, commitment, and the choice to stay connected, even when the world tried to pull them apart. 1 year later, on their 17th birthday, Sophie and Madison stood together on the Brooklyn Bridge at sunset, watching the city lights begin to twinkle across the skyline. Behind them, two families waited, Catherine and David on one side, Jennifer and Lily on the other. No longer separate, no longer competing, but learning to be something new together. A year ago, I thought my life was ending, Madison said quietly, her hand finding Sophie's. I thought finding out the truth would destroy everything, but it didn't. It just changed it, Sophie added, understanding now what she hadn't a year ago. Changed isn't the same as destroyed. They'd all changed. Catherine had learned to share Madison with grace, even when it hurt. Jennifer had learned to respect the parents who'd raised her biological daughter, even when she wanted more time. David had become the bridge between families, organizing dinners where everyone gathered, awkward at first, but easier with practice. And Sophie and Lily? They'd built something unexpected. Not the twin bond Sophie had with Madison. Nothing could replicate 16 years of shared life, but a sisterhood nonetheless. Lily taught Sophie guitar, and Sophie helped Lily with college applications. They were different, always would be, but they were learning that different didn't mean incompatible. I have something for both of you, Madison said, pulling out 2 small boxes. Inside each was a silver necklace with an engraved pendant. Sophie's read, Sisters by choice, twins by love. She opened Lily's box to find an identical inscription. Because that's what we are, Madison explained, her voice thick with emotion. All 3 of us. Sisters not because of biology or hospitals or DNA, but because we chose each other. Because we decided that family is something you build, not something that just happens to you. Lily wiped away tears, fastening the necklace around her neck. Sophie did the same, feeling the weight of the pendant settle against her heart, a reminder that family was more expansive, more complicated, and more beautiful than she'd ever imagined. Should we tell them we're ready? Madison asked, gesturing to their waiting families. Both families, Sophie corrected with a smile. Our family. They walked back together, 3 sisters connected not by the circumstances of their birth, but by the choice to love each other despite those circumstances. Behind them, parents who'd made mistakes, and parents who'd been wronged, waited to celebrate, not the daughters they'd expected, but the daughters they'd been given, in all their complicated, beautiful reality. The Sweet 16 party they'd postponed was finally happening, 1 year late. But this time, it wasn't divided between families or shadowed by secrets. This time, everyone who loved them gathered in one place. 2 mothers who'd learned to co-parent with grace, fathers who'd learned to step back when needed, and 3 sisters who'd discovered that the strongest bonds weren't written in DNA but chosen every single day. As candles were lit on a cake large enough for 3, Madison made a wish she knew would come true, that the family they'd built from broken pieces would continue to hold together, not despite their complications, but because of them. Family, they'd all learned, wasn't about perfection. It was about showing up, choosing love over resentment, and accepting that sometimes the most beautiful things emerged from the most painful mistakes.